Galileo Galilei. Galileo? Galileo. Hello everyone, welcome back to Foster the Meeple, a channel all about
board games.
And
more board games.
Exactly. We're back again with another board game snapshot. Oh, you scared me. I wasn't expecting that tone. For anybody that doesn't know, our board game snapshot series is a series where we do 5 mini reviews, and that's exactly what we're here today to do. Now, I will say all 5 of these games have been sent to us by the publishers, so early shouts out to them. The first game that we are going to be talking about is an expansion, and that is the Gears of Corruption expansion for Expeditions from Stonemaier Games. Shout out to Stonemaier Games for sending this along. So it's going to be helpful if I first just do a brief recap of what Expeditions is and then tell you what this adds. But basically, Expeditions is a hexagon grid exploration map style game where each player is playing as a different person with a companion and then what? Okay. Each player is playing as a different faction. You have a person and a companion, and you have a little mech, and your mech is wandering around the board.
Little mech?
Well, it's
the mini is little, but in the world
it's a mini.
Big mech.
Well, a big mech then. You're walking around the map.
Big Mac.
A big Mac.
Mm.
And you're walking around the map discovering new hex tiles, and then you are going to be taking different actions. So almost similar in the way that action selection works in Scythe a little bit, where like you can't do the same thing twice, like you can't select. So basically how this one works is you have a little cube, and anything that's open are the actions that you can do. So there's move, play, and gather. Those are the only actions that are available in the game. Move, believe it or not, means that you're moving around the map, uncovering different things. Play means you're going to be playing cards from your hand, which by the way is like open information to everybody. And then the cards are obviously going to do a bunch of different things. There's also little workers that you'll place on them to trigger additional actions. And then the final action is called gather, and that is where you are gathering different types of workers or resources or cards from the hexagon map into your supply. And you are going through this trying to vanquish corruption. You are trying to complete quests, gather items, meld, and do all of these different things to score glory, which is like inside these little stars. I keep referring to Scythe because it's set in the Scythe world. So you're scoring glory points based on the things that you are achieving, and then whoever has the most money at the end of the game wins, and different things correspond to different money. That's Expeditions in a nutshell. Now, what the Gears of Corruption expansion adds is a couple of new factions, and it also adds a corrupt mech that as soon as somebody completes their first glory quest, this little stinker comes out onto the board and he's like, I'm gonna walk around and I'm gonna mess things up, and he'll try to go into your space, and if he tries to go into your space and there's a penalty, and he's just wandering around.
He also steals map tokens.
He steals map tokens. He's a rascal. So he has his own little deck that will show which directions that he moves, and it will also show the penalty if he runs into you. And in the game, a big part of it is getting rid of corruption from the map in order to open up some new spots that you can gather from, which allow you to place glory and upgrade and do all of these different things. And his corruption cards can also be used towards like vanquishing corruption. So that's one component that this expansion adds. One big thing that a lot of people had a complaint about with Expeditions is that it took a while to kind of get going into the game. So what Expeditions Gears of Corruption adds also is a master worker, a little hero worker dude. He's gold, and it's wild. So this is something that's going to allow you to start taking actions really quickly, which is something that took a little bit longer in the original game. So you start with a worker and he can go on any card, which is really, really helpful. So it also replaces one of the map tiles. It also replaces some of the cards. And like I mentioned, it gives you 2 new mechs and then a bunch of new like character factions to choose from. And it also gives you 2 new player boards, the Scarecrow and the Mole, which correspond to the mechs. And it replaces all of the old player boards with player boards that are recessed.
Mm-hmm.
So you can chuck those old ones out because who needs them? But that's kind of what this adds. Now, do we like it? Number one, I really like this expansion. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, I would never play Expeditions without this, ever. Like, I would say this is almost like, and nothing is essential, but it's almost an essential expansion because for me, my enjoyment of Expeditions this time playing it was so much more than when we've played it before because it just felt like it was so much snappier.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I was just letting you were on a...
Or I was on a tear.
You were on a tear there, so I was just letting you do your thing. Yeah, I mean, this is a quality of life upgrade.
Yeah.
That's what this expansion is.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with what Jamie just said. This allowed me to get into Expeditions much quicker.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the people that did not overly enjoy how long it took to get into the original experience, even though once I did, I enjoyed it very much. This just expedites it. It's like, hey, boom, you have a wild worker. You can start doing stuff right away, which is phenomenal. It was a great fix. And I played as one of the 2 new factions.
Yeah, like the alien.
It was like this cool, corrupted alien type faction. I very much enjoyed the faction I played as. I won't spoil anything for you, but this just made it better. There's nothing more I can say. I agree. I would never play Expeditions without this baked in now. And the recessed player boards, I mean, we've talked about those a ton.
It's a lovely upgrade.
Yep.
Yeah, I would definitely say like Expeditions was a like for us before, but we got halfway through. We played a game yesterday and we got halfway through it and I was like, I am really digging this, like a lot more than I used to. And after we played Expeditions the first time and enjoyed it, we never pulled it out again. Like we were just like, okay, we've played it. And now I'm still thinking about it and I would like to try playing it solo. And I just think this, yeah, like Jeff said, quality of life. Like this is... It
makes the race much faster. I mean, at the core of this game, it's a race. This is a race to get your 4, just like Scythe, the original, it's a race to get your glory tokens out.
Yeah.
And making sure you're obviously doing the best you can to amplify the points of those glory tokens, but it's basically a race.
And that is Expeditions Gears of Corruption expansion. Solid box spin.
Next up from Devir Games, and your boy Phil Walker Harding.
Mm-hmm. And Steve Finn.
We have Cities. Cities was sent to us from Devir, so thank you to them for that. You might be thinking, Devir has been lately known for some chunky boys in a small box. Like,
honkers.
Lots of thinking space.
Weesh.
Heavier on the scale.
And
this is not that. No. Cities is a very approachable city building game where it's worker placement, but in a really kind of unique way. So in Cities, what you're trying to do is build out a city. You're going to be grabbing tiles. You're going to be adding features to your city, which are basically like, maybe you're putting a fountain in your park, or maybe you're adding boats to your marina.
Or a whale.
Features. You're also building up your cities with actual buildings of different color types. So ultimately what you can do on your turn is all of these things. So one row has scoring cards in them. One row has feature tiles in them. One row has city tiles in them. And one row has building tiles in them, or buildings in them. You're going to be taking your worker and taking one of those options. So you're allowed to, in a 2-player game, because that's what we played as, you are allowed to play 2 of your workers per row. That's it. So you can't take 3 city tiles, for example. You're only going to be able to take 2. And what you're doing is building out a 3x3 grid of city tiles and scoring as many points as possible. And all of those points that all of those point systems are different depending on what city you played as. So there's like New York, there's Barcelona, there's Sydney, there's Venice. There's a whole bunch, and those all have their own inherent baked-in scoring objectives that you're trying to achieve. And then, as mentioned, one of the rows are additional scoring cards that you can grab and add to your city for endgame scoring. And it's traditional kind of scoring fare. Orthogonal adjacent park systems, orthogonally adjacent water systems, having red buildings 4 tall, having red buildings 2 tall, having green buildings at 3 tall. And depending on how many of those you have, you'll score more victory points. That is, in essence, the game. It is a very simplistic, very enjoyable city building game that I fell in love with. I was really not expecting to like this game as much as I did. I really thought Jamie would like it way more than I would, because it's way more of Jamie's speed than mine. But of all of these lighter, fair city building games, I've enjoyed this one the most. I think it's really awesome how the worker placement in a 2-player space works, where you kind of have to, and I should mention, one of the columns is random.
Secret.
So the other 3 columns are face-up information, but one of the columns has a face-down scoring card, so you don't really know what it is. It has a face-down city tile, so you don't know what it is. It has face-down feature tiles and that sort of thing.
Or drawing
or you have to, instead of getting the buildings that are out on the board, you actually draw 2 from the bag and add them to your city. Very coffee game. It felt very like
it's coffee table,
cottagey, just sitting out, having a cup of coffee and placing some tiles and making some cities. Like, it was,
I thought it was super, like, it was really unique in the way that they did it. And I gotta say, I love a game that's got a set number of rounds. It might be one of my favorite things that games will do, because it just, like,
you know when it's going to end.
You see the beginning, you see the end, and the turns specifically, we've only obviously played this at 2.
Quick.
They're so quick, because you're like, I boop, I take this, I boop, and I boop, and I take this, and I boop. And if you want something, then you have to try and take it right away, because the other player, like, you can only take 2 of each. So if, like, I really need that city tile, I got to take that, because you're going to get cornered into taking some stuff that maybe you don't want or need. And I really like taking the secret stuff.
Yeah, and
Didn't work out for me, though.
One of the spaces I thought was unique too. Like, not unique because it's in other games, but in the bottom right corner is the draw 2 buildings out of the bag, but it also lets you take the first player token for the next round. So there's a distance space there. It's like, well, I don't know what buildings we can get, but I really need to take. I really don't like not having first pick. It was a really good time. I very much enjoyed it.
Loved it. All right, next up we have Confusing Lands from Envy Board Games, who very kindly sponsored this portion of the video. Shout out to them, and they are sponsoring a giveaway. Woo!
Everyone likes a good giveaway.
Everybody loves giveaways. So let's first talk about Confusing Lands, what it's all about, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the giveaway, shall we? All right, so Confusing Lands is a micro game. That's basically kind of what they're specializing in a little bit. And I'm just going to show you, it's just these cards, okay? This is all you got. And everybody starts with 2 cards, and then they're going to choose 1 card to play out, and then they're going to pass the second card to the other player, and that player then has to play out that card. There's a few placement rules in which you always must cover up at least 1 square. You can cover up more. And you cannot cover up the scoring objectives, but you can place on either side. They're different on either side. At the end of the game, you are going to continue until you're basically out of cards. At the end of the game, you're going to look at all the scoring conditions, and you are going to score those accordingly. Very simple, very quick. It takes about 10 minutes to play. It is a game for 1 to 2 players. That's the game. Very simple, very straightforward. Now, I will say that the scoring conditions are where things get a little bit confusing and a little bit wonky and kind of hard to achieve. So while the game itself is very simple, depending on what scoring conditions you put face up, you're going to have to basically plan out what you're doing based on those things and trying to not overwhelm yourself, because you will get negative points. And then there's also going to be a shared goal that everybody has as well. So yeah, at the end, you have to take 10 points away.
Yeah.
So it's hard to score good points in this game, but very simple, very straightforward, just a quick little card placement game, micro game. That is Confusing Lands. Now let's talk about the giveaway. Envy Board Games is going to be giving away a set of their micro games. Okay, so not just this one, but this one will be included. They're going to be giving away Sirens, Defrag, 16 Candies, and Confusing Lands. So that's their entire mini game series to one lucky winner. However, what they're then going to do is they are going to provide a prize for second place winner, which is just going to be a copy of Confusing Lands. Confusing Lands is available now for anybody that's interested, but if you would like to enter for a chance to win either the whole set or Confusing Lands, put in the comments below something that you find very confusing. Okay? Make it weird. We'll probably forget that we asked you that.
Black
and then
holes.
That's true.
So confusing.
In the comments, we're going to forget, and Jeff's going to be reading them being like, why are people saying all of these strange things in here? Anyways, shout out to Envy Board Games for sending this along and sponsoring this portion of the video.
Next up, we have Captain Flip from Play Punk.
Play Punk. Spiel des Jahres nominee.
Captain Flip has been getting a lot of heat. Good heat.
Good heat.
Lately. Captain Flip is a very straightforward tile placement game where you are just trying to score as many points as possible. The player board is a series of columns that you'll be placing your tiles into. There's a bunch of different boards in here, asymmetrical boards that score differently. There's a base board that you can play as or play with. But essentially what you're trying to do is pull tiles from the bag. And on your turn, when you pull a tile on the bag and place it down in front of you, you can keep it on that side, or you can flip it. But once it's flipped, you can't flip it back. And ultimately what you're trying to do, all of these tiles score differently. So there's like a gunner, and if you have 3 or 4 gunners on your board, you lose immediately at the end of the game. Like, you just do not score. There's a parrot token that I think lets you like flip a tile adjacent to it, or maybe it lets you, it's worth negative points, but you get to take another turn. There are set collection tiles where if you have more of them, you'll score more points. There's a tile that if it's at the top of the column, then you will score the points for that tile. There's end game tile scoring. There's immediate tile scoring. There's like this map token that can shift around between players depending on like cartographers that are played. All of these things, but at the core of it, the core mechanism of this is draw a tile, choose whether or not you want to flip it, and place it into your board. And then and I think in most instances, as soon as someone fills 4 of the 5 columns, the game ends immediately. That's it. That's Captain Flip. Super straightforward, and it's on BGA if you want to try it out before committing to buying it.
It's so much
It is
fun.
Weirdly addictive.
This game was initially, we found out about this game last year at Gen Con?
PAX.
Or PAX, one of them. And by the way, it was sent to us from Play Punk via Flat River Group.
Yep.
Okay? But when it was first explained, like, and they're like, oh, it's like a kid's game, because it is for 8+.
Yeah.
Kids could very easily play this.
Definitely.
And so, you know, and you're like, oh, it's a kid's game, it's probably going to be really cute. But like, no, this game is cute, but it is addictingly fun. And there's different ships that you can use, so there's lots of variability.
Yep.
And there's a really fun decision space, because you're like, do I risk it for the biscuit? And
Always.
flip? Because it's not like, oh, there's a parrot on this side, which means there's this on this side. No, they're all different.
Yep.
It is wildly fun. And I actually don't know anybody that's played this that hasn't enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Right?
Fair.
Spiel des Jahres. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it's Kinderspiel or Spiel des Jahres. Last but not least, we have Galileo Galilei.
We just went over it.
Help me.
And you got it wrong. You did it fine the second time, not the first time.
Galileo Galilei. This is from Pink Troubadour Games, who very kindly sponsored this portion of the video and sent this game along as well. So, let me tell you a little bit about this game.
Do you like combos?
Do you like combos? Amazing. So this game is set in the world of astronomers, such as Galileo or Kepler or Copernicus. These are all characters that you can play in this game. Basically, what you're doing in Galileo Galilei is saying it over and over because it's super fun, number one. Number two, it is an action selection using a telescope.
It's a really unique system.
It's very unique. So essentially what you're doing on your turn is you are going to be moving your telescope 1 to 3 spaces, and that is going to correspond with some kind of an action. The actions are going to allow you to do a variety of things. Perhaps gain some die, because die are how you pay for different things, or you can increase the pips on the die, or you can grab what were those things called? The little hats? Started with a G.
The hats?
You know, they were like these, they let you do the free actions.
Hats.
What were they
Quadrants.
called? Quadrants. So you might be able to gain a quadrant, which will allow you to do some free actions. You can take an observe action, which is kind of like the big way that you're going to score points in this game. So to observe is to either observe constellations, which are going to score you maybe smaller points.
But easier to achieve.
Or you are going to observe major...
Supernova, planets.
There's major stuff. In space. There's a word for it that I can't remember. But anyways, so those are going to actually take combinations of die. So one might be like 10 green, which means you need to pay a combination of blue and yellow die that are going to be able to allow you to take that. And then what's interesting about doing that is that major constellation or whatever that you're looking at, you then get to flip that card because it's multi-use and put it into your library, which is going to allow you to study. There's other things in the board that you're going to be doing, like going to university to study and going up certain tracks. There are little inquisitors that are going to be moving through...
Because they don't like science. The church did not like science.
They're going to be moving through your cellar, and the more that you impress them during an interrogation, the higher your reputation is going to be throughout the game. Then there's also going to be some objectives that you can do, and what's really interesting about all of this is at the end of doing your action and completing all of those combos, because you do a free action which might allow you to do this, which might allow you to move up a university, and that's going to let you move through your library. It's combo-rific. Then at the end of your turn, when you reset, oh yeah, I forgot, there's also comets. You could put comets out into space that are going to allow you to kind of take some cost off of the dice that you're paying for the constellation stuff. At the end of your turn, those action spaces move. So you're actually going to be picking it up and putting it at the bottom and shifting it. So
it's this interesting arc.
Yes.
Your telescope's looking at the sky. It's
very unique. Very, very unique. So that kind of is the game in a nutshell. And so what I would say about it is that it's extremely combo-y. There is a lot to do. And I will say it's kind of Kanban-y in a way where everything that you do makes sense. So we were reading through this rule book, and without even having to, before we even got to the next part, we're like, oh, I understand what this means. I understand what I will do when I do this, because the iconography on the board is very clear. And then I will also mention with the astronomers or the philosophers that you're playing, you can play them on a basic side, or you can flip them and they have some kind of a unique special ability. So there is some variety there as well. This game is for anybody who enjoys a good combo, who enjoys space and exploration.
Yeah.
There is not a set number of rounds, but there is a timer. So basically there's discovery cards that go out based on your player count. And as soon as the last one goes out onto the board, because that's the constellation cards that you're gathering. As soon as the last one goes on the board, that triggers the end of the game. So you are really kind of building up what you're doing. You're also upgrading your actions. So everything also ramps. So if any of that sounds like something that you might be interested in, we will put all of the information for Galileo Galilei in the description below. Okay? It's what it looked like. And anything that you see in terms of B-roll, this is a prototype. So be warned about that. It's a prototype. Okay?
Indeed.
Indeed. So those are 5 more games that we have been playing recently. Jeff and I have been throwing around a little idea of doing a Review-a-Palooza coming up soon, where we're going to try and play so many of our review games and give you a real quick hitter Review-a-Palooza.
Yep.
I just like to say it, and because I like to say it, I will like to do it. And that's where my story is going, and that's the end of this video. So if you're interested in buying board games like any of the many we talked about today, you should first start by checking your friendly local gaming store. And for us, that is
Boardroom Game Cafe.
Facts. And if you like what you see,
please subscribe.
We hope to see you again soon. And now we say goodbye. Goodbye!
Later days.
How much?
Like $300 or $400.
For something that sucks water out of the air.
Yeah, but we need them.
Yeah. Okay. As for not a real sentence. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank God. I just had a moment of panic where I thought maybe your microphone was off. But it wasn't. 16 Candles and Confusing Lands.
Candies.
16 Candles is a movie from the 80s. Everybody, calm down. Galileo. Galileo Galileo. Dr. Sayus, Dr. Sayus. Do you know what that is? From The Simpsons? Okay. Fun to say, that's what I know. And this is from Pink Trombone Troubadour.
Troubadour.
Well, it's a tuba.
Yeah, but you said trombone, so it still doesn't matter.
Thank you, Pink Trombone, for sending us that game.